If you can step up, bring your process, bring your expertise, bring your personality, your energy to the game, you can outshine the rest of the realtors out there very easily. There's opportunity out here because all you got to do is step just above the bar and you can raise it as high as you want. Welcome back to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. Matt Benelli is with me, Garrett Fry, today, and we're excited to be with you. Matt, we're going to jump right in here. I want to get talking about this because this is something that came up for us as a, really? Is that the truth? Is that really how it goes? And this is the idea that's thrown out there all over the place, which is everybody knows 10 real estate agents. You're in competition with all these people, and you got to find a way to be one of those 10 when you want to earn their business. And for a while there, for a long time, Matt, I have said to myself, I don't know, maybe 10 people. And this spurred a bigger conversation between the two of us where we're like, well, let's do some research on this. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because it's an interesting statement. And I think, and the number always fluctuates. We're like, well, maybe it's 12 or 13 or 14.
I was with the group the other day and they're like, no, it's 12 now.
Yeah. Well, and by raw numbers, and this is the statement that I can say, okay, that's probably true, that everyone knows of 10 to 12 agents, right? Because it's, if you just go out in your everyday, you'll probably see some form of advertising from one or two or three real estate agents. You're going to get a postcard from someone who's doing a farming program or things like that. And then you'll also know the person that you use as your real estate agent to buy and sell homes. And I think as we were talking about this, we're getting to, but like when it comes down to it, how many people do people really consider, are they thinking of when it comes time to buy or sell? Now that's a hard survey to go conduct, because how do you know if somebody's really right now thinking of buying or selling before they're already engaging an agent? But we did take some time to go and just have some conversations with people who are not real estate agents, which, it was hard to maybe conduct that because we know a lot of real estate agents. You and me, I'm like, I know of hundreds of real estate agents, but.
Well, that's where I got to think about this, Matt, is when I started to think about all the people that I coach. Like if they wanted to go and try to like have any kind of proof, social proof around this, their numbers are already messed up because the person they're asking is like, well, I feel like, well, this is my agent, or I don't want to make them feel bad that I would, not put them on the list. Like they can't ask this. And then we went down the route and I started going like, well, who do I know that's not a realtor? Like, and after 20 years of coaching real estate agents, I'm sitting there going like, who aren't? Well, I do have people. Like I did find a whole group, and it was very fun to kind of go and make a list of people going like, okay, that's someone that has zero affiliation with real estate. Perfect. Got them down. And, but it was really interesting gathering this data and talking with these people and hearing their experiences, because that's also what came out of this for me, Matt, is that people actually shared with me their past experience of using a realtor, the realtors that they know, and their choices that they would make moving into the future of why they would choose or why they wouldn't choose somebody, which was really interesting, which made all of a sudden my mind go, there's an incredible opportunity out here. Now,
yeah,
I want to share this also because Sarah, my lovely wife, she said, I know you're all caught on this idea right now of like BS. Not everybody knows 10 real estate agents. And I was pretty hot on that. And she said, what if it's not so cut and dry? She said, what if you look at your database of people, your wherever you keep all the people that you've ever known in your town and all the connections that you have, how many of those people are licensed that you don't even know they're licensed? And so if you just look statistically at the numbers, there's a very good chance that of the people that you bump into and the people that you know and all around town, you might know 10 people that are actually considered licensed real estate agents, but they only kind of help out friends on the side, or I only do deals for my family, or maybe I have a license, but I don't actually use it. Like when you look at the stats, you might actually be able to prove that everybody knows 10 real estate agents. Because I've been shocked in my world over like maybe after a couple of years of knowing somebody and they're like, I'll meet their spouse and their spouse is like, oh yeah, I'm a licensed realtor, but I don't really do much with it.
I think it's absolutely true that people know of 10 to 12 to however many. And so the data that we, collected is obviously very anecdotal, but just starting with I was thinking about me, Garrett. I was like, okay, who do I know that's not in my world because of what I do? Not a coaching client, and it's helpful that I moved away from where I was managing an office, because I was like, I can look at this as who stays in connection with me here in Charleston area, who I would say, okay, we could be connected even if I wasn't doing what I do. And I was like, okay, I got 4, maybe 5, in my head of people, if I was not licensed myself, not a coach, of people I would talk to about real estate. And one of them is a commercial broker, by the way, too. So it wouldn't even be considered for a residential project. And another one is definitely a part-time person because he has another full-time job. He does it for family mostly.
So I did the exact same thing. I started off with, well, let's look at myself first. And I really was like, in thinking about, okay, who are all the real estate agents that I know? And I started to go that I could literally bring their name to mind. And I'm not thinking about somebody that if I was walking down the street yet, that I'd be like, hey, John, they'd be like, hey, Garrett. I'm not even there yet. I'm just kind of going okay, names of realtors that even if I was sitting in a restaurant, they could sit right next to me and we wouldn't say a word to each other, but I might go, oh, that's so-and-so. I know who they are. I'm about 5. I about 5 people in my town. I've lived here for a solid 15, 16, 17 years now. I have about 5 people I'm not a licensed broker. I am a coach, run a podcast with you, Matt Benelli, as you might know.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I hear it's a great podcast.
I don't go to the board meetings here in town. I'm not part of any kind of continuing education. I am literally general consumer in this town, about 5 people. That's what I could come across. If you said I could go up and shake their hand and talk to them, that number drops pretty small, pretty quick.
And this is where it does depend, because it depends on what you're involved in. I have a feeling I'm going to get to know a lot more realtors just because of my kids going through the school system, right? And starting to meet more and more parents and everything. I was talking to a group of agents the other day, and I was saying, gosh, that stage of life is such a great opportunity for you to just show up and be present, because you have this situational opportunity for years as your kids go through school. And so, yeah, you might meet more and know more realtors if you're in that phase, but your phase, Garrett, where your kids are out of school in your area. And so you're not connected in that way. So it is harder. And I think what's interesting about it is, through talking with all the people I spoke with, which is mostly text-based communications on kind of running this little poll,
this is funny, the differences between Matt and I that you're going to learn about. Keep going, Matt.
Yeah. Well, and partly I think for me too was I was trying to connect with people who weren't just local, but definitely a very difference between the way we operate, which is why we work so well together. Is the highest number that I got from somebody was, oh yeah, I know 6. Common was 2 or 3. 2 or 3, right? So when it comes to people thinking of who I would maybe talk to or engage with if I'm thinking of buying or selling, 2 or 3 people. So maybe they know of 10 or 12, but that number didn't even come to their mind. No, I got 2 or 3 people that are in my world that I would trust to talk to, or maybe have a conversation with, or call on, even if they didn't know them, because they're getting that person's material, right?
Yep.
And I was like, oh, okay, that's a lot less than 10.
I did go outside the area, just so you know, Matt. It's not all local Reading people. No. This isn't just Reading stats.
But you had a lot of in-person conversations too, which I think is good.
or over the phone. And so looking at this, when I went out and I said, first off, how many people do you actually know? And I was saying, can you name names of people, even if you don't know them personally, but you know of their name? I had 110. I had one person that said, I could name you 10 real estate agents. And he's super connected. He works in the surgery center here in town. His wife is a teacher here in town. They know a lot of people. They are well known in this town. He had a 10 that he could give me. Everybody else went 6 and lower that they could actually name real estate agents. Very similar to us, Matt, is when you say you could just, pull real estate agents out. When we got to knowing personally, I found very similar numbers to what you're talking about. That one gentleman that had the 10, he said about 4 or 5 he knows personally that he could go up and have a conversation. Everybody else was 2s and 1s. I had one person that was a 4, other person that was a 4, but everybody else was 2s and 1s. It's a very, very, very small group of people we actually know personally when it comes to real estate. And when you're building a referral relationship style business, this is the number you need to understand. If you are marketing to the general masses out there and the strangers, you need to understand the 10 people. Everybody knows 10. They're getting bombarded by 10 people all the time. But when we're doing relationships, oh, it's a much smaller number.
And I think this highlights opportunity, but also another challenge that may be a hidden challenge. I mean, we use this stat like, oh, you need to stand out and everything. And marketing companies use this all the time as a way like, hey, everybody knows this. You want to stand out. And then we look at the NAR stats, which show that 70% of sellers interview only one person. Well, if they know 10 to 12, like, why are they only interviewing one? And which, okay, great. Maybe it's easy to stand out among the 10 or 12 they know of, but I think this raises a tougher challenge, Garrett, which is, okay, if they have 2 or 3, because nobody that I talked to said 1, right? Except for somebody who was like, well, I would just call you. And I was like, well, okay, I don't count.
I had one. He's a gentleman I race with, and he said, but I'm also the most antisocial person in the world. He goes, I kind of like hanging around you, and that's about it.
Yeah. I was like, I don't count. Like, take me off the list. And I think this raises the challenge of how do you then become the one, right? And that is a harder thing to do sometimes. And I think this goes into having, consistency and systems and things like that, because I think the reason why people have a handful of people that they would call, or maybe that they know of so many, is because most people are just kind of doing the general stuff. They're like, hey, I'm just making sure that I'm just baseline showing up.
Did you ask the question, if you had to call one person or if you had to call a realtor right now, who would you call?
I did not ask that question.
Okay, well, I'm going to get into that one because I did.
Well,
and it opened up a whole can of worms is what it did, which it leads us into what you're talking about right now, because I want to also add into this, and I think that we need to pay attention to this side of this also. I was on a group meeting here just yesterday with a wonderful group of agents up in the Seattle, Portland area, Windermere office. And I was talking with these agents, and one of the ladies said, one of my top referring clients, she goes, I could trace it back over 9 years to 30 sales that have happened from this one person, has never done business with me.
30 sales.
The person who has referred has never done business with her and never will, because she has another realtor that she feels like she has to use and wants to use and enjoys, but she refers crazy amounts of business off to this one person over here, and so there's a lot of dynamics that go into this. So as we're going down this, like knowing personally and who would you use and would they use you or use somebody else? Like there's this other dynamic that I watch that people blow relationships up, future business up all the time, because they go, oh, that person already has a realtor. Check them off my list. I shouldn't be spending any time with them. And we go this other direction. So as we're sharing this information and going through this, just know, just because they may have another realtor or you learn about that, don't let that cloud your marketing and your relationship building and what you do, because that's big business. Like, how many people do you need who have another realtor as their primary realtor referring that type of business off for you to have the best business you could ever think about? Oh my gosh.
And I think what's fascinating is people use this stat kind of as an excuse as to why they don't have business. Well, my market is so saturated. Everybody knows so many realtors. And it's like, I get it. And, basically fast forward to the conclusion here, like this stat, while it may be true, whatever it is, I don't think at the end of the day really matters. That's like, hey, I have a great idea for a restaurant, but you know what? My market's already saturated with food. People can get food in a lot of different places. There's a lot of restaurants. So there's no use in me opening a restaurant. I'll tell you, man, there's a new Mexican restaurant that opens up on our island like every like 6 months. We have so many. It's like, gosh, and people are like, man, it's so saturated. Now, one of them did just close, and we'll do a whole podcast on that one because I have a whole idea and reason why they did not last. But okay, some would say there's an oversaturation, yet these restaurants still keep popping up and most of them stay open.
We have a run on fried chicken in Reading right now. I don't know what it is, but everybody's frying
Getting an
chicken.
influx of Southerners coming up there, maybe. I don't know.
Hey, we got wings. We got everything you can think of. Different ways to put chicken between two pieces of bread. We got it happening here in Reading.
I love it.
Now.
Well, so let's get into then the nitty gritty behind this, which I think is really the important part, Garrett, which is getting into those conversations of who would you call if you wanted to actually do a transaction.
Okay, so here's the craziest information that I was able to gather. And this is what made me stop with people and go like, okay, we have a problem, but we also have an opportunity. I called my friend in Nashville, Tennessee, and he's been there for a handful of years now. And I said, how many realtors? He said he could name about 3. 2 of me knows personally. I said, okay. So I said, if you were to buy or sell real estate right now, who would you call? Do you have somebody that you're like, that would be the person, or how many people would you call to interview? He said, well, that's the funny thing. He goes, I'm actually looking at buying real estate right now. I said, that's pretty funny. I said, so what's your scenario? Like, what are you seeing right now? He said, I wouldn't use either one of them.
And one of those, if he's been there a handful of years, must have been someone he's used previously.
So he says, I wouldn't use either one of them. And he goes, to the point that right now we strategically don't bring up real estate around them. He goes, because we don't want to be hounded or feel like we are trapped by them chasing us, because now they know that we are wanting to sell, or they want to buy real estate is what they want to do. They're like, we are like tiptoeing around them, not saying a word because we don't want to be accosted by these people. So I'm going to use his words. So there's a swear word in here, but he says, he goes, the best way I would describe the 2 people, he goes, one of them, he goes, is batshit crazy. He says, and the other one is snaky at best. He says, these are the 2 realtors I know personally in Nashville. And I'm like, can I refer you to somebody? He goes, I would love a referral. So Bud George, if you're listening out there, there's probably a referral coming your direction. So that was one. I had another gentleman here in town, and he is an insurance agent, and he is super uber connected in
That's
town.
somebody you probably know a lot. Yeah.
His dad basically created this insurance company. He's run it under his dad for many years. They've got teenage kids that are going off to college right now. That's how I know him. His sons are, kind of in my kids' world. And so he was one that he's like, I know 4 personally. I have 4 people that I could go and personally know. He says, not a ton. I said, who would you use? 0. He says, I wouldn't use any of them. I said, really? I said, why is that? He goes, I wouldn't use any. He goes, I just wouldn't use any of them. I said, how would you find your realtor? He goes, I'd call one of my friends and see if they would refer me to somebody or someone they trust that I could be able to use. Really? That's interesting to know. So that was a good one. And then I had another gentleman. This is the one who actually knew the most amount of people. He's the one that's in the surgery center here in town. And when we came down to it, he says, I've actually used 2 realtors in town. He said, there's one that I would probably call. And he goes, and it would not be the person that I've used. I said, really? I said, so why wouldn't you? He goes, there was some stuff that was really shady that happened during the real estate transaction. He goes, it was really uncomfortable. And he says, and it was just, I feel like they're sneaky. Something was sneaky about what was going on. And I said, well, how did you find that realtor? He says, they were referred to me by my dad. And I said, and he goes, this is the weird part. He goes, I called my dad and I said, there was some shady stuff that happened during our real estate transaction. And his dad went, yeah, ours too. When he was helping us out, there was some weird. He goes, why did you refer him to me? He's like, I just thought that was kind of what you got with the realtor. Okay. So these are the stories that started coming out of when, and again, I have some people that are like, I've got my realtor. Like I've got one, that's who I'd call. Nobody said they would interview multiple people except for the guy that knew 4 that said he wouldn't use any of them. He said, I would probably get a couple of referrals from a couple friends and interview a couple people. He's the only one that said he'd interview multiple people. Everybody else was like, I've got one person. And there's a lot of people on my list here. They had like one or two that they knew personally. And they're like, I got my one realtor.
And I think with the people I spoke with, even though I didn't ask the question that you did, because I was just trying to understand how many people do they know or how many people would they consider, connecting with. And since I never got the one, aside from a couple of people who are like, well, if you were still here, I would just call you. Or if I was going down Charleston, I had some people say, well, if I'm moving there, I'm just going to call you to connect me with somebody, which, okay, great. And so my stats are a little skewed because I still have my license.
This is the baggage that you carry that I don't. Like, this is what...
Yeah, so I have a little bit. But what was interesting to me, though, Garrett, is that, and it sounds like with your conversations, even though the results are a little bit different, the commonality is the lack of understanding of true value or the perception of how it went, and it could probably be better with somebody else, right? And these are value conversations that realtors are missing the opportunity to engage in with their people so that they can be the one person that they call.
So this is interesting because I've shared these numbers with a lot of people that I coach, and you can watch the hackles go up on their like, as they're going like, well, I hope I'm not that, so that in that somebody's world. Or my people don't think of me that way. And I'm like, okay, you're the mere fact that we're coaching together and that we are operating on the level and you're running the business that you're running in the referral-based business, you are not part of these stats necessarily. The opportunities out there for all the people that don't have a realtor like you in their life, that's a huge opportunity. But your people probably don't think of you this way. These guys out here.
But I want to say, like, you could be a part of those stats too, but it's not personal. Like, don't take it personal. It could just be like, because I know plenty of great realtors who, when they're running their process, it's good, but maybe there's a perception from the client that something was not the way it could have been, or they just have a different experience based on their own emotion. And then they just tie that to you from a business perspective, but not a personal perspective.
Think of how many really great realtors, Matt, don't follow up after the sale. I mean, you're all listening out there. You all know exactly who I'm talking about, that you've done a sale.
We do it too. Like, we're all guilty of this from at some point where it's like, gosh, I really should call that person. I really should follow up on that. And then months go by and we're like, I just feel like it's too far away. I mean, what's interesting too is we have those conversations with our coaching clients too.
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, you know what? You can be a part of that group. But the beauty is you can correct it. It's not like this is a mountain that you can't climb. Like, there is a solution.
Well, and this is where I look at like, okay, so we're in an industry and this is where like, I feel like in car sales, like I did so well in car sales. And there was a gentleman that sat next to me when I was selling cars that just crushed it. He had families coming in one after another going like, Ron, I'm here. By the way, we got the kids. She's turning 16 here next month. We're going to be coming into you to get a car also. And he's like hugging all of them and hanging out and sitting down. Let me get you guys coffee. And they're like hanging out at the dealership. So you got Ron, and then you got, I'm trying to think of John, who was another salesperson there. And he was like sitting back, kind of going like, yeah, I wish I could have a business like that. Like, I wish I could. He was typical car salesman down the road. This is the one here that's running this relationship crazy business that's totally outside the norm. And there's a breath of fresh air when you come across a salesperson in the car industry that you're like, you're unlike every other car salesman I've ever had to deal with. And you're going to get all my business, all my friends, all my people, because I'm going to save them from having to deal with all the normal car salespeople out there. Real estate kind of falls into a little bit of that line here. And if you can step up, bring your process, bring your expertise, bring your personality, your energy to the game, you can outshine the rest of the realtors out there very easily. And that's why I'm so excited about sharing these stats today, Matt. It's like, this is why I said there's opportunity out here, because all you got to do is step just above the bar, and you can raise it as high as you want, but step just above the bar. And that's enough for people to go, oh, you're unlike any realtor I've ever come across.
Well, and I want to use your car salesman analogy as we go into like, well, what does it mean to step above the bar? And is there another bar that might be in that space as well? Which is, we, as anybody who's thinking about buying a car, the first thing that they're probably going to do is go online. They're going to go online. They're going to look for, maybe some reviews and all that stuff. They'll check the inventory around their area first. And people who are really serious about getting a particular type of car might be like, you know what, maybe I can go to a dealership that is a lot further away and they can deliver the car, or I can fly there and drive it home, right? Because with a car, like, inventory is all over the place. It's managed by the dealerships, right? But then there's these salespeople who are able to attract this business where people will just go to that person. They're just going to go there and be like, I trust you to help me. And really, they're most of the time just dealing with the inventory that they have on their lot. And so the consumers already know they're going to somebody who has limited inventory based on maybe what they're looking for, unless you're particular to a brand and you're always going to that same brand over and over again.
But I want to add on that.
And they're happy with that too. They're very happy with that experience. Whereas real estate, everyone has access to all of the inventory, even with these changes. Okay, yes, there's a listing agent, there's a buyer's agent, but everyone has access to it all. It's not limited to what is on your lot. Now, car salesmen also aren't limited to necessarily what's on their lot. That's like next level car sales.
And to add into that really quick, I want to say, like, I sold Saabs and I moved to Jaguar, and I'll never forget calling my client Janet, and she goes, I could drive a Jag. She goes, yeah. She goes, I'll come by and see what the new, I've never thought of a Jag, but I think I could drive a Jag. She ended up buying a Jaguar. Like, that was her next car. She traded in her Saab and went and bought a Jag. So I just want to tell you, like, that's how strong the relationships can be.
It absolutely is. And I think and now real estate is a different thing too, because, if you're not happy with the car, you can go swap it out, right? Yeah. It's a little bit harder to swap out the house, although you can do that if you want. But the opportunity is, okay, getting over this first bar, Garrett, I think is just being present. Most realtors aren't present. I do think that poses another challenge though, once you clear that hurdle, is, okay, I'm in this space. And I think this is where, for the agents that are running a good business, this is where a lot of their emotional and internal frustration comes from, is like, I am present and they didn't use me. And they feel like the personal attack. And this is where it gets into, okay, they know you, but they do not see the value difference, because your presence isn't highlighting the value of what you can bring to them as an advisor, whether they're transacting or not transacting. And this gets into the quality of your conversations from a personal relationship, and the quality of your content in terms of showing off like how good you are. Now, I don't mean by like saying, I'm amazing, I have all these sales. I mean by actually giving education and sharing testimonials from the clients that have worked with you, who are validating the quality of your service, right?
Well, and I think this goes back into how often are we interacting with the people that are around us. And I think a lot of times we take for granted our databases. We look at our database and we go, got all these people in here. And in our mind, we're like, oh yeah, I've talked to Matt Benelli. And if you really had to go back and analyze, when was the last time I talked to Matt Benelli? And you start going back and go, okay, so it's like, oh, it was just recent. It was that soccer trip that we had to take with the kids, that we were in Salt Lake City. It's like, okay, so let's go back. It's like, oh my gosh, that was 5 months ago. It's like, how in the world was that 5 months ago? It's like, okay, maybe Matt, it's been a little bit longer. I thought I was in better communication with them, but I should probably give them a call. Well, you could do this with your database and roll down through it. Do not be surprised if these people are going off and using others. If you're more than about 30 days out from communication with them, like, it can happen so fast, because real estate's an interesting thing, is that it doesn't happen very often for people. It's highly emotional, it's highly stressful, and people are looking for a solution. And so when they get into that moment of buying or selling real estate, there's a moment in there where they very quickly go, who are we going to have that's going to help us with this? And their brain rattles through all the people that they know and all the people that they trust. And if there's somebody that's been around them, they're going to get a phone call. Like, they're going to be like, oh, I was just talking to so-and-so. I was just at this event and we bumped into, we should give them a call right now. And you're right, Matt, the realtors that are around the others outside of that are going, it's a personal attack on you. Going, they did this on purpose. They didn't use me for these reasons. And oh my gosh. And I mean, my favorite joke is, I'm going to pull them off my mailing list. I'm never going to send them a postcard ever again, because y'all show them. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, you're going
to show them what? Like, that you're going to fail in business because you're no longer going to do marketing, I
Yeah.
guess
It's like,
you'll
oh,
show
thank
them.
goodness we're not getting their postcards anymore. I think that this is the opportunity is that one is just showing up. As you said, we just need to be present in their world. We just need to be around them. And as you said, then the next step is how in the world do they interpret the value that you bring to the table? And the old-fashioned way is to hammer on them, going, "Hey, I'm a realtor. Hey, hey, do you need to buy or sell? Do you need to buy or sell? Not right now. How about you over there? Do you need to buy or sell?" Which then brings in this energy where a lot of these people that we talked about are like, "Yeah, I know a couple, but I wouldn't use any of them," because when they are around them, they're getting hammered on right and left, right and left. And like, keep your arms, like protect yourself at all times. Let's not talk about real estate. Whatever you do, don't mention that we're thinking about buying around these guys. Like, that's a crazy situation that if you can be that person that has the relationship, builds this value on the other side, which postcards are brilliant for, nice light touch of what the values you bring to the table, you can be there for them when they need them. But you gotta create this communication platform, relationship platform, and then bring in your value on this other side, which can be done through social media, postcards, all kinds of ways.
Oh, so many different ways. And I think the pressure that a lot of people feel is, well, that's a lot, right? I already have to do so many things in this business, doing the business, and then I got to go generate the business. Then it's like, how do I generate the business? And you're like, oh gosh, if I'm not in contact with them in every 30 days, but like my database is massive. Like, how do I get through all those people? And it's like, okay, there are layers to this. And this does get complicated. And this is why I say this is the additional challenge that comes up when we look at like, oh gosh, good. I don't have to compete against 10 to 12 people. Yeah, but now you have to compete against one or two or a referral from somebody who is trusted by that person. And now that gets complicated because how do we level up our value to the point where people feel really good about referring us? Because, and we probably are due to do a whole nother episode on why people refer, but people are not going to refer you unless they feel really good about what you're going to do to make them look good on that referral. And so I think that's where it's like, okay, you don't have to be 30 days with everybody in person or voice to voice or whatever it is, but you want your core true sphere of influence. You do want to be 30 days with them because that's where most of your referrals are going to come from. And then you want everyone to be receiving this level of value. And now what is value? I think is a question people might, well, what does that mean? Is it just sending just listed or just solds or emails or whatever? And it's like, well, there's kind of levers to this depending on frequency of that value going out and the quality of it as well. Like if you're consistent.
Social proof, though, of you taking care of people and being able to get the job done over and over and over again is really valuable.
Really valuable. And this is where it's like, if you're going to do like just sold postcards as an example, sharing testimonials of that person's experience, because it matters who says it, right? It matters who is talking about that experience for saying, hey, I just sold this house and here's how I made it amazing, versus the seller going, oh my gosh, like we wanted to sell our house. Garrett came in with this plan and it was so perfectly executed. Like we couldn't be happier with how the process went. We just felt comfortable the entire way. No mention of, oh yeah, it was sold above list or anything like that. It was just the comfort and experience. And someone reading that goes, I want a comfortable experience selling my home. I'm going to remember Matt, or I'm going to remember Garrett when it comes time to sell because this person, Matt, had a comfortable experience with him.
Let's go back to these numbers for a second, because I think we got a whole nother, more episodes we can do on marketing and on why people refer and all that stuff. But I think one thing that's really interesting is that knowing that a lot of these consumers out here don't have that person that's their go-to person. And a lot of them have a lot of people that they're like, I wouldn't use. What I've known and what I've seen in building really strong relationship businesses with people over many, many, many years is that the results become exponential over time. And it is a lot of time and it is a lot of work up front to build those quality relationships and to be genuine and to make it authentic. It's not about slapping down a foundation, being like, yeah, that'll work. Like the stronger you can make that foundation, what happens is every year you can add another story on. The story gets bigger, the building gets bigger. We add another story on. Just think of the story as like an extra year. We got one more year that we've added on to now of social proof of people that go like, oh my gosh, Garrett was great last year. He was great, this year. Next year, I know he's going to be even better. I can trust him even more, easier to refer him. It just grows and builds. And so what happens is you start this off and you may only have one person that says, I'm comfortable referring Garrett Fry. And then 5-10 years from now, you have 15, 20 people that are like, that's the person I refer all my friends and anybody. And if I had to do real estate, that's who I do it through. You're not doing any more work of marketing or trying to get around people or trying to like bring your message into everybody. It's being consistent with it. And it gets better every year, every year, every year. It just keeps adding on. And that's what I think where the opportunity is. And it is when you're building it up front, it's a lot of work to build those relationships and to find those people. The reward long-term is just massive, massive.
It's huge. I mean, and you bring up a really great point. And Matthew Ferrara talked about this inside our 11 Circle a couple months ago now, which that recording is in there. If you guys want to be a part of our coaching program where you get us live every single week, you can go to lifeat10tenths.com and learn more about the 11 Circle. But Matthew Ferrara highlighted in his talk, 80 to 90% of realtors are out after 5 years, right? Whereas if you just survive past that, the level of clientele, I mean, there's a couple agents I work with that have been in the business for 20, 30 years, right? And just the number of people that have experienced them who are comfortable referring because they've been around so long is massive. And it's like, gosh, I just can't stop the referrals from coming in. It's like, because you have staying power. That's one of the beauties of just staying with this. And so for anybody who's listening, like, oh, I'm getting into real estate so I can make some money and then pile it and just go do something else. Like, there's a lot of power in having longevity. And this goes for any business, right? But particularly in real estate, because it is so hyper local as well, like word gets around. People are like, oh yeah, Garrett's the guy. Like you guys don't know Garrett? Oh man, like you are missing out on some really great stuff if you don't know him.
Everybody knows a realtor in their town that they're like, oh, that is the person. They've been here forever. They built their business here. They just collect, they do more business than anybody. And everybody goes, well, what do they do different? Well, they've just been here forever. They have a lot of database, have a lot of people they know. Like that staying power, Matt, is really, really, really powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I will say coming back to where we started, thinking about those people that I know, that there's two people, as we've kind of been going through this conversation, there's two people that come to my mind where I see a consistent demonstration of how well they do their business. And some of it is like a just listed, posted, or something like that. And I have a different perspective. Like I enjoy those things because I like to see how people are marketing. But because I do, like it speaks to me. And I like what they show. They're showing really high quality performance from, at least from a marketing perspective. If I'm a consumer, I'm like, I'm paying attention to these properties versus I don't know if other realtors are listing stuff around me. And there's two people that just come to mind where like, I'd probably call those two people and talk to them and understand a little bit more about their process. If I was going to go hire somebody to sell my house, that wouldn't be me. And I think that's the whole point of it. You build that consistency and it's consistent. That's why. It's not like all of a sudden one splash, I'm like, oh, I'm going to call this person. It's because I see it over and over and over again. And I hear from them. And when I talk to them, there's no sales pitch.
And Matt, if we just want to simplify this as we kind of wrap up this episode, I think that word consistency, if you want to build relationships with people and build a relationship business, you need to have consistency in working on the relationships with these people, hands down. And that's where a lot of people falter in this, is that they have a database, but they don't reach out to them. They don't talk with them, or they do talk to them. They don't talk to them about things that are going to build the relationship. They talk to them about things that are important to them and their business and their world and their life. If you want to get in good health, it's consistently going to the gym. You want to build good cardio health. It's not consistently doing weight training. It's consistently going and doing cardio type training. That's how you build that. That's how you get good at it. Consistently doing it. Can't do it once a month to make a damn difference. You can watch it with food you eat. You can watch it with podcast episodes, Matt. I think we were just joking about how many podcasts come and die because they finally just start to fall apart on getting the episodes and the content out.
21 episodes is the breaking point to get into a top 1% staying power podcast.
Matt and I were celebrating just recently.
Just 21 episodes. It's like, now we've been doing this for years. So we're like, oh gosh, we're going to like blow. I mean, we are well past 21 episodes now with this one. But most people stop. I mean, if you're doing, 21 weeks if you're doing one a week. I mean, so in real estate, that's a short period of time. Real estate, it's not, I mean, years may seem long, but if you look back, you're like, oh gosh, this last year just blew by. I was actually funny. I was talking with a client and yesterday, and he brought up something related to COVID times. And I was like, that was yesterday. We were just talking about that. And I went back and looked and gosh, we've been coaching for 6 years. And that time feels like yesterday when I was having that conversation with him that he brought up. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it's been 4 years since that conversation. So time goes by fast and consistency is a big thing. But I think, Garrett, the real message here is that yes, people may know of 10 or 12 realtors, but they really only know a handful. And to get to that level is just by showing up. And then to be the one, you take it up a little bit more, maybe like crank it up to 11 and bring that value. And all of a sudden you're the one getting the phone call.
The big eye opener for me, which was really interesting, is that the people that had realtors in their environment and they weren't really comfortable using any of them. And for me, that if I was a licensed real estate agent right now, that would be the thing I'd be looking at and saying, look, I don't have to compete with anybody out here. I'm not competing with anybody out here. I just need to show up and bring value for these people because they don't have somebody they can easily turn to. And how can I step into that space? So that was my biggest takeaway of gathering this data and working through this.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening to us. And I'd be curious as to your thoughts. Like, what do you think about that whole statement? Everyone knows 10 to 12 realtors. If you're on YouTube, just drop a comment below the video. And if you are on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you are notified when we have new episodes come out. Because not only are we doing these episodes, we got these little short clips that are on YouTube, which are little bursts of content for all of you. And at some point, we'll also be putting out some additional videos on YouTube that may or may not make it to the audio platform. So be sure to be paying attention on both platforms if you are an audio and a video type of person. But we really appreciate you guys tuning into these episodes as always. And as we mentioned earlier in the episode, if you want to join our coaching program, which is the 11 Circle, where we are live coaching every single week, we bring in guests. So you get access to Garrett and myself at least 4 times a month in a Zoom or Q&A format setting. Head over to Life at 10 Tenths to learn more about that. And we hope to see you guys in there.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Matt. Appreciate all of you listening. Thank you. See you soon.
Take care, everybody.